Expand your mind and enrich your world. It's time for another outstanding podcast from ICRT.
Hello and welcome to another podcast edition of Taiwan Talk. I'm Keith Manconi. Engaging speakers and ideas worth spreading. That's the promise offered up by the internationally renowned TED conferences to audiences all over the world. And since 2009, TedxTaipei has made that same promise to audiences all around Taiwan. Well, the organizers of TedxTaipei are bringing another massive two-day conference to Huashan Creative Park this Saturday and Sunday, with its usual roster of movers and shakers from both Taiwan and abroad. So I recently made a trip over to their offices in Taipei to speak with the group's co-founder, Jason Chu, along with the speaker relations coordinator, Claire Lee, to hear about this year's event, along with what they feel they've managed to bring to Taiwan over the last 6 years. All right, so we are speaking to Jason Chu and Claire Lee. Thank you both so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
So just looking at the theme for this year, Big Bang, I was doing a little bit of reading, and it sounds like the idea here is that there are a lot of conflicting forces right now. There's a lot of strife, we could even say, going on in the world. And you're interested in what comes out of that. What is the new thing that comes out of all that conflict? And I'm just curious, was this theme influenced by what's going on in Taiwan right now? Is there any way that you're trying to reflect current events in Taiwan with this?
Exactly. The reason why we choose the theme Big Bang is obviously it comes from the origins of the universe. But the reason why we use this analogy is also because we feel there's a lot of changes going on in the world within Taiwan, a lot of uncertainties facing the future. And we feel that there's a lot of disrupting forces appearing and coming up, and that could become the future solutions. So with this conference, we hope to introduce some of the change makers that are doing great stuff, both in Taiwan and around the world.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. So when you select speakers to come from outside of Taiwan and talk here, what are you looking for exactly? What are the ideas that you think are worth bringing to an audience in Taiwan?
Yeah, so when we choose our speakers, we always ask him, what is one idea that you want to share that can change the world? So this is our basic principle when we select the speakers. So no matter what his profession is or what gender he or she is, what we're looking for people who are doers and thinkers and with great ideas to change the world and change society. And maybe Claire can give us some examples of who would be some of those speakers speaking at TedxTaipei this year.
All right, yeah. So give us a sense of who we're going to be talking to this year.
There's a wide range of selection of speakers this year, over 30 speakers coming from all over the world. And just like what Jason said, the speakers we select are basically people who has a great idea for this world. Mainly, we asked them if there was one problem they would like to solve in the society, what would they do about it and how they approach it. And as a matter of fact, we just interviewed the professor from cognitive neuroscience from Zhongyang Daxue, NCU. And one interesting phenomenon she brings up is whether humans have the choice of free will. It's a debate that's been going on around a lot, and of course, as a researcher for many years, she has her own take on it. But she gave some interesting examples on from the past. People were thinking people have no free will at all, but from the research experiments, she's been able to find that there's actually a very slight difference between where the neuron fires to actually taking action in your brain. So that's an interesting phenomenon for people to decipher whether this dictates whether you have free will or not. And from that point, she brings out the debate on whether from free will, does that dictate our moral values? And from moral values, how do you decipher societal problems such as whether you're pro-death penalty or not? And it's a really interesting connection that you can make from a psychology experiment to a societal phenomenon. So she's just one of the very many amazing speakers from our selection.
So you're going to settle that age-old question of whether or not humans have free will this weekend?
Yes, it's going to be tough on her because she says she doesn't want to give the conclusion herself, but we'll see.
Alrighty, so making those big connections between, like the high-end science and what's going on in society. But another interesting thing that you guys are doing this year is you're also bringing in people that we might not necessarily expect to see on a stage about big ideas. Firefighters, teachers, people that normally don't get such a big stage to express their ideas, but you're saying that they really do have some big ideas to express.
Exactly. Actually, every year when we curate TedxTaipei conference, we not only choose people who already doing great stuff, but we actually go deep into society and look for these doers and thinkers. So every year we host a audition called Open Mic. So we allow these ordinary people who are doing great in their own profession to submit their 8-minute talk that can change the world. So we host auditions in Taipei, Taichung, and Kaohsiung. So we are overflowed with these ideas that people want to share. Almost 300 people submitted their proposals, and we select 4 people to present it on TedxTaipei stage this year. So, for example, one of them is an ex-convict. So he actually got out of jail many, many years ago, and he founded a center for youth empowerment, teaching kids martial arts, musical band, and just to get street kids off the streets. So we thought this people's story is really worth telling and really worth to be known. And I think this is our mission, to become that beacon, to share the light to the people.
Now, I've done some reading from interviews with you, Jason, and you said that when you started, really what you were looking to do was tell the story of Taiwan, hear the Taiwanese perspective. And so I've been to some TedxTaipei events, and so a lot of what you hear is just that. You hear about people's lives, their experience, how they got where they got. But it sounds like this year you're taking it the focus in a slightly different direction. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. We believe that, I think what this platform serves is serving as a bridge connecting Taiwan to the world. And we also believe that in today's world, Taiwan plays an important role by sharing what we have done or to our solutions to the world. So this year, when we curate or select speakers, we particularly ask them one single idea that they are working on to change the society. So that's kind of one brief or one pitch we ask them to give. And we also ask them to say, what is your ask? So if you were to ask something in front of this 900 people audience at TedxTaipei conference, what is your ask? And how do you ask your audience to make change together? So that's kind of one thing that we've done differently this year.
And do you think in doing that, when I came to past TedxTaipei events, it felt a little bit different from TED events that I had been to in the U.S. It felt more distinctively Taiwanese. It felt like people were much more interested in hearing about the life experiences of their fellow Taiwanese people. And I feel like in the U.S. that just wouldn't quite fly. In the U.S. you would feel like, why am I just listening to this guy's life story? Why am I listening to this? So do you feel like in any way you're taking it in a direction that is less in line with Taiwan culture? Or what are your thoughts on that?
So I think what I'm trying to do is to sort of change the formula a little bit. I think when I first introduced TedxTaipei to Taiwan, I think I'm searching for an anchoring point of what Taiwan is. So I curate a lot of stories that are originated from Taiwan, almost to bring back that sensitivity of who we are back to our society. But I think after 7 years, we curated close to 400 talks now. I'm researching that the TedxTaipei 2.0, and what I believe is Taiwan's connection to the world. So when I curate this year's conference, I specifically ask, what is one idea? What is one thing? What is one venture that you are doing? What is one project that this speaker is doing that could benefit to the world? So I think I'm sort of shifting, what is Taiwan to what is Taiwan can do for the world. So that's kind of my positioning, kind of shifting and changing the formula a little bit.
So really focusing on, you think that there are some big contributions that, everybody thinks of Taiwan as a small island. I mean, it's really more of a middle-sized country, but people think of it as a small country. And you're saying you really want the focus to be on what does Taiwan have to give?
Yeah, exactly. And I also believe that what we're trying to do is bring the world to Taiwan and make Taiwan visible to the world. So it's a little bit of both, So 1/3 of speakers come from abroad. So we have speakers from Japan, the U.S., Germany. What we do is that we allow Taiwanese people to know there are other things going on in the world. And for example, one speaker we introduced, she's a war correspondent. And it's a really special profession. In Taiwan, nobody talk about being a war correspondent. But here's someone who's interviewed terrorists before, who's covered Iraq war before. And I believe it's really interesting perspective for society to know. And I think what we're trying to do is to inject this, positivity and also possibilities in the world, not one single story type of perspective.
So just like as Jason said, a lot of the stories that we have approached are a lot of life experiences. And it's also one special characteristic of Taiwanese audience. People like to learn by example. They like to learn about other people's experiences. But from the 7 years that we have from TedxTaipei, we're gradually shifting their mindsets. And we are not only challenging the speakers to give more than they're sharing, but to boldly give a point and their opinion, their takes on the world, and also inviting the audience to think like them and challenge their mindset to not just take in what they are received, but to maybe analyze and give their point of view as well. So that's something that we're trying differently this year. So we're trying to give the speakers a challenge, and hopefully this year in our annual conference, we're able to challenge the audience to think as well.
Has that been difficult to do working with speakers? Because I know that a lot of times people are a little bit shy. They don't necessarily want to be, like you said, bold. They don't want to stand out and say, I'm the one with the answer. So has that been difficult to work with?
Certainly has been really difficult, especially when you work with Taiwanese speakers. Most of them are really accustomed to give an experienced talk. So talks on what they have shared already and what they know. But when we ask them to give a talk that extends beyond what they know and maybe think about the future, what they would like to achieve with what they have already, it is certainly very challenging. But from a lot of talks and discussions, we're able to lure them to think outside the boxes. But it's taking progress.
So expand on that a little bit. How are you working with them to kind of prod them in that direction?
Well, okay. So let's say for Professor Denise Fu, for example, it's very easy for her to give a talk that what she has studied already. But then a lot of scientists and researchers are very reluctant to give a conclusion of their own unless it's publicly published. But in her talk, we're not asking her to give a stance on where she stands, but to maybe make an assumption of what she sees this research or this experiment or concept will take place in the future and how she can inference from that and possibly give an inspiration for the audience. So it's taking a baby step beyond what she has already have and provide open-ended inspiration for the audience.
What we usually do, actually, especially when we're prepping the speakers, is we will find similar reference TED Talks, and we will say, hey, look, your topic is within this range, and here is 1 or 2 talks you can reference off. And these are talks being given by speakers on TED stage. And look at how they approach problem. And he's in your similar field, and this is how we would want you to approach them. And I think that really gives them a model that they can level off, and I think that's a kind of a good way to say, hey, look, you can have different approach, because a lot of speakers, they tend to stay within comfort zone, tend to speak what they are familiar with. They don't talk about things that they don't talk about before.
All right, I want to end things out today just kind of looking at the future and the direction that you guys are trying to go in, because if you walk through the TEDx Taipei office, you've got a pretty big crew, you've got a bright bunch of people, and if you were just trying to put on a conference, you probably wouldn't need that many people. So it's obvious that you guys have something bigger in mind. There's a bigger goal that you're trying to, some kind of bigger change or new idea that you're trying to bring to Taiwan. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, is just even outside of these conferences, even outside of giving a good show for these listeners and giving some training to these speakers, what is the broader vision here?
Sure. I think our DNA is we want to change education. And I think that there's powerful talks when they're given on stage by TedxTaipei and distributed online, watched by so many people, can create a very strong learning materials in classroom. So what we're trying to do, going forward is for this 400 talks to be distributed to classroom and design a special curriculum that can be used in classroom discussion. So for example, when teachers teach about environmental sciences or environmental issues, they can curate, a series of 6 TED and TedxTaipei talks, and then at the end of the course, design a project for students to engage in. And what we wanted to do is also for these 400 speakers to be able to travel across the island, and when they go meet with students and then have face-to-face engagement with them. So what we continue doing is that we wanted to kind of continue provide the innovative learning content for next generation leaders.
And would you say that that's something new that hasn't been around in Taiwan before? Why do you think that that's a direction or something that's valuable in Taiwan?
I think content has always been around in Taiwan for many, many years. But I think the way to structure them, or the way to connect content with life experience, is something that hasn't been done enough. And what we're trying to do is to be able to design action or actual life projects based on this content. And hopefully we will, as we kind of think more about this and restructure our team, going forward next year, we will have more time, energy, and resources doing that, and I think that's kind of exciting thing to do.
So you're saying you actually want to be a part of education reform in Taiwan and maybe changing the way that people think about education in Taiwan?
The way I see it is not part of education reform, maybe part of education revolution, because I think it's difficult to change within the system. You almost have to make something new. And what we believe is we are creating a new way of learning. And who knows, maybe one day there will be a TED-like school. That's how we should be learning about anything and everything. It is connected learning, self-organized learning, curated learning. And today's education system doesn't really emphasize that. And what we were hoping that one day, all these speakers, they all become, teaching at this, this special alternative school that we will be creating for the future. And I think that the biggest change I would like to see is students can really be motivated to learn, not to memorize or to be educated. And I think we need to tell the difference between learning and education. Learning is what you do for yourself. Education is what others do to you. And I want to be able to change that. So to train next generation kids to become self-learners, self-starters.
And I guess TED, honestly, is a pretty good model for that because, if you're on YouTube watching TED videos, you always feel that urge to click on the next one. So it is a very self-motivated learning process.
Exactly, I believe so. And that's why we, it's what keeps me awake at night, to think that I still have so much that I haven't done. We've already just kind of covered the first, part, and this is kind of, figure out next mile, how will we do, and we're really excited about the journey. And obviously with, a colleague like Claire who's really devoted, and we're really happy that we got some really good teams here, yeah.
We've been speaking to the co-founder and curator of TedxTaipei, Jason Hsu, as well as Claire Lee, who handles speaker relations. Thank you both so much for speaking with us today.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you, everyone.
Once again, the conference is TedxTaipei Big Bang, and it's coming to the Huashan Creative Park in Taipei this Saturday and Sunday. You can learn more about the group and this weekend's event at TedxTaipei.com. Thanks for listening. For Taiwan Talk, I'm Keith Manconi.